Yes, and I kicked it a bit, so I think it's okay now. Okay. I just read the last paragraph again because I think I didn't say it properly. However, over the last couple of years, I came to a different view on what fundraising could mean and what could or should be done to make it sustainable. And that is the story I want to share with you in this podcast series. I thought the first time that I came across fundraising was when I wrote my first funding proposal back in 2010 or 2011. At the time, the only activity associated with fundraising was proposal writing, at least at the organization I worked for. Later on, when I started educating myself on the subject and learned from trendsetters like Linda Lisakovsky, who wrote the Bible of fundraising, I realized that I have been exposed to fundraising much earlier in my life, back in my childhood. My mother was actually a fundraiser for her community. My mother would organize Iranian high teas to raise money or auctions where everyone would bring something from their home and others would buy it at a good price. She also raised funds from the local businesses for less privileged neighbors who did not have sufficient financial means to pay for their medical bills or buy school supplies for their children. I remember that my mother had placed donation boxes at various local shops, like our main supermarket or at the butcher or dry cleaner, and every month she would go to these shops and open the donation boxes, count the money in front of the shop owner or other clients and customers present. I need to breathe at some point. And open the donation boxes, count the money in front of the shop owner or other clients and customers present in the shop, and inform them how she was going to distribute that money, of course without mentioning any names. This worked so seamlessly, all because my mother was trusted in the neighborhood and the neighbors knew each other rather well, and they were each other's network of support. My mother also raised funding from the local municipality in form of construction material like bricks and cement for a sports center at one of the local high schools. The tale of my mother raising that amount of money is legendary in the community, as she persistently followed through on the pledge that the mayor made over 6 months. After over 30 years, that sports center is still standing and functioning. The fundraising domain of my mother was not limited to our local community. She engaged my father and his network as well. One of my father's contacts had a factory in producing special forms of metal bars, and he was willing to donate tons of those metal bars that were produced overproduced at his factory for a charity. My mother searched in her network to find another business owner who needed those special metal bars and was willing to buy them from the owner at an above the market price for a good cause. So in this way, 2 business owners out of her extended network were engaged in a good cause, and she could raise considerable amount of money for a charity she was supporting. After some years, my mother also set up a local fund. With some of the other neighbors on monthly basis, everyone who was involved with the fund would contribute an amount. At the end of the month, one of the members would receive the amount collected and start repaying it back on top of her monthly contribution without any interest rate. In this way, the neighbor who needed an extra financial support due to an unforeseen financial cause or wanted to have a lump sum to invest was helped by her community. All these years, I was witnessing how fundraising at local level works, and it took me quite some time to realize why the way we are raising funds is not the right way and sustainable way. And by we, I mean those of us who are working in the development aid sector. As a quick clarification, it is very important to make a distinction between 1. Humanitarian aid, 2. Development aid, and 3. International development or development cooperation. The distinction between humanitarian aid and development aid is usually clear. However, a lot of INGOs mix up development aid and development cooperation and count themselves as an international development organization, whereas they are merely a development aid organization, meaning that they exist based on receiving funding from various sources, such as the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and through their activities they support or help a community in a developing country. Development aid is also referred to as official development assistance. Development aid is also referred to as official development assistance, or ODA, and I have decided to dedicate my life my work to change the way we fundraise for development aid. I advocate for defining an exit point for ODA to truly move towards a sustainable development international or global community, where all goals defined under SDGs are achieved. And that's at the core of these podcasts. Looking at the history of development aid, the historical beginnings of official development assistance are firstly the development activities of the colonial powers in their overseas territories. Secondly, the institutions and programs for economic cooperation created under the United Nations backings after the Second World War. Thirdly, the United States Point 4 program, and lastly, the large-scale support for economic stabilities in the countries on the periphery of the communist bloc of that era. The success of the Marshall Plan created considerable and perhaps excessive optimism about the prospects for helping poorer countries in quite different circumstances through external assistance. The development aid was supposed to be a temporary solution, and after all these years, there is no sign up. And after all these years, there is no sign of closing this temporary solution because the way we have supported our target groups has not been sustainable. That's why I advocate for developing sustainable fundraising mechanisms for the community so they can sustain their own projects. Projects that are by the community, for the community, and with the community. I have developed a synergistic methodology through which we can not just define an exit plan, but also implement and sustain it. I will be sharing this model with you in the upcoming episodes. Fundraising is not my only interest or occupation. Besides being politically engaged, I'm also a PhD researcher at Rotterdam School of Management. I also absolutely enjoy being a mother of 2 energetic and loving boys, along with my partner. Next to these, I run my own consultancy firm as a Nexus strategist, where I combine harmony and progress to bring about positive impact. I developed this concept because I have a vision. Call it a dream, if you will. And that dream is that I want to live in a world with true personal freedom of choice, equality of opportunity, and the ability for people to thrive, which is balanced with a personal responsibility to contribute to the collective good. I believe this world is possible by taking an integrated nexus approach to challenges and opportunities. This approach needs to focus both on individual components as well as the interrelatedness and interdependencies of the entire system. Only in this way we can reduce trade-offs and create and hence leverage synergies. That's why through Nexus strategies, I bring back balance and harmony to the context in which we operate and apply change leadership to build a coalition of unlikely allies to collectively develop a pragmatic strategy. My vision for exiting development aid as it is, and any other activity that I undertake, is linked to the dream I shared with you. And I believe we can achieve a truly sustainable world if we put the community at the center of our development programs. This is done. Shall we record the other one as well and then start the editing part? This one is even shorter. Shall I do a test or we just move on? Okay. Hold on. Yes, exactly. I decided to dig quiet dip. No, not quiet. Sorry. I decided to dig quite deep. Am I saying it right? Quite. Yeah. Sorry. Maybe I should just take this out. It's easier. I decided to dig deep in my past and unearth any memory that has pushed me away from my community and redevelop that memory to bond and connect with my new community. I have chosen to curate my kin. Okay. Welcome to the first episode of Your Curated Kin. Thank you for showing up and tuning in. I have lived out of my country of birth for over 15 years. None of my family members live close to me, and I have lost the option to visit them whenever I want. Due to my political background. The physical distance between us brought emotional distance as well. Of course, I speak to my direct family members on a regular basis, but it does not replace the face-to-face meetings and joining their gatherings in person. I'm sure most of you who are listening to this podcast can relate to this feeling after the pandemic and the isolation we all felt. When I accepted that I'm no longer able to go back to my country of birth, which was a 2-year process with a significant mental breakdown, I decided to rebuild my life and family here in the Netherlands, and that's how I got into curating my kin. I already had really good friends from my college years and knew quite a few Dutch families through the work I did for them during my student time here in the Netherlands. And I tried to revisit these relations and connections to find a closer bond with them. Easy to say, but very challenging to implement. One might think that it's easier to bond with people from the same sex or gender, or the same religious background, or the same ethnic background. But this was not definitely the case for me. And it took me quite a lot of time and energy to figure out what actually helps me bond with someone else that is beyond a work or college relation. And that's what I would like to share with you in these podcast series. Interestingly enough, I realized the hard way that it is next to impossible to truly connect and bond with anyone in my life if I'm not truly connected and bonded with my own roots. In upcoming episodes, I will share with you why and how hard I try to erase parts of my past in the hope that it will help me to forge a new understanding and identity for myself. And I thought if I manage to erase it from my own memory, I might be able to present a new identity to the world that cannot trace back that erased past in my actions and behaviors. And hélas, as the Dutch would say, that was a vain attempt. My attempt to erase my past was an unconscious, engraved behavior that I took from both of my parents. My father tried to erase his past by adopting a new and much more appreciated accent by his society when he moved out of his community to build a new life. And my mother tried to erase her past by avoiding to acknowledge the trauma she went through. I understand now, after many, many years, why my parents have chosen to erase their past, and how their need to bond with their community have pushed them to make such choices. And how their need to bond with their community have pushed them to make such choices. I have chosen a different path. I decided to dig deep in my past and unearth any memory that has pushed me away from my community, and redevelop that memory to bond and connect with my new community. I have chosen to curate my kin. In these podcast series, I will be sharing with you my struggles to bond and to maintain a connection. I will be sharing with you how unearthing past painful memories has helped me to build a bright future. And I will be sharing with you how the meaning of the phrase Noosh Jan, which is Persian for enjoy your meal, has been at the core of all the dinner gatherings I have arranged for my curated kin. As a liberal, I believe that any form of change to be brought about must come from within, from the smallest and most important unit of every society and community, and that is the individual citizen. As a liberal, I also believe that every individual is absolutely responsible to find themselves and truly bond with their community. Because as social creatures, we are hardwired to care, love, and form relations. We have a deep need for bonding and belonging, and this, I believe, can only be achieved if we are truly connected to ourselves in the first place. I'm a mother of 2 energetic and loving boys, and with my partner who is their stepfather, our main wish for them is to be truly connected with themselves. At my work, I also try to truly connect with my colleagues and clients. In my consultancy work as a Nexus strategist, I combine harmony and progress to bring about positive impact. I develop this concept because I have a vision. Call it a dream, if you will. And that dream is that I want to live in a world with true personal freedom of choice, equality of opportunity, and the ability for people to thrive, which is balanced with the personal responsibility to contribute to the collective good. I believe this world is possible by taking an integrated nexus approach to challenges and opportunities. This approach needs to focus both on individual components. This approach needs to focus both on individual components as well as the interrelatedness and interdependencies of the entire system. Only in this way we can reduce trade-offs and create and hence leverage synergies. I have developed this synergistic model which not only I apply in my work but also in my personal life. The starting point of this model is to get rid of the notion of work-life balance. The starting point of this model is to get rid of the notion of work-life balance, because work is part of life and not in a dichotomy with it, and life has so many other components than just work. That's why through Nexus strategies, I bring back balance and harmony to the context in which we operate, and apply change leadership to build a coalition of unlikely allies to collectively develop a pragmatic strategy. That's done.